That was an article published on www.seattletimes.com at the 19th of April 2007. Russia plans to build the world's longest tunnel, a transport and pipeline link under the Bering Strait to Alaska, as part of a $65 billion. Russia plans to build the world's longest tunnel, a transport and pipeline link under the Bering Strait to Alaska, as part of a $65 billion project to supply the U.S. with oil, natural gas and electricity from Siberia. The tunnel would run in 3 sections to link the 2 islands in the Bering Strait between Russia and the U.S. This will be a business project, not a political one, Maxim Bystrov, deputy head of Russia's Agency for Special Economic Zones, said at the media briefing. Russian officials will formally present the plan to the U.S. and Canadian governments next week, Razbegin said. Most read business stories. Fans say it isn't what it used to be viewed. The non-stop scam economy is costing more than just money. Boeing's plan to make 737 engineers return to office earns both scorn and praise. The Bering Strait tunnel will cost $10 billion to $12 billion and the rest of the investment will be spent on the entire transport corridor, the plan estimates. Investors in the so-called public-private partnership include OAO Russian Railways, national utility OAO Unified Energy System and pipeline operator OAO Transneft, according to a press release which was handed out at the media briefing and bore the company's logos. Russia and U.S. may each eventually take 25% stakes, with private investors and international finance agencies as other shareholders, Razbegin said. The governments will act as guarantors for private money, he said. The World Link will save North America and Far East Russia $20 billion a year on electricity costs, said Vasily Zubikin, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Hydro OGK, Unified Energy's hydropower unit and a potential investor. It's cheaper to transport electricity east, and with our unique tidal resources, the potential is real, Zubikin said. Japan, China and Korea have expressed interest in the project, with Japanese companies offering to burrow the tunnel under the Bering Strait for $60 million a kilometer, half the price set down in the project, Razbegin said. This will certainly help to develop Siberia and the Far East, but better port infrastructure would do that too and not cost $65 billion, Trusts Niedershan said. For all we know, the U.S. doesn't want to make Alaska a transport hub. And nowadays the article became true. Russia really started to build tunnel worth of $65 billion. Drive from Europe to the U.S.? Russia proposes world's greatest superhighway. It could happen if the head of Russian railways has his way. According to a March 23 report in the Siberian Times, Russian Railways President Vladimir Yakunin has proposed a plan for a massive trans-Siberian highway that would link his country's eastern border with the U.S. state of Alaska, crossing a narrow stretch of the Bering Sea that separates Asia and North America. The scheme was unveiled at a meeting of the Moscow-based Russian Academy of Science. Dubbed the Trans-Eurasian Belt Development, TEPR, the project calls for a major roadway to be constructed alongside the existing Trans-Siberian Railway, along with a new train network and oil and gas pipelines. This is an interstate, intercivilization project, the Siberian Times quoted Yakunin. The project should be turned into a world, future zone, and it must be based on leading, not catching, technologies. Are we there yet? The road would run across the entirety of Russia, linking with existing road systems in Western Europe and Asia. Yakunin said the road would connect Russia with North America via Russia's far eastern Chukotka region, across the Bering Strait and into Alaska's Seward Peninsula. The road would likely enter Alaska some distance north of the town of Nome, where the famed Iditarod sled dog race ends. How would drivers span the ocean gap between Siberia and Alaska? Ferry? Tunnel? Bridges? The report didn't offer specifics on the route across the sea. The shortest distance between mainland Russia and mainland Alaska is approximately 88 kilometers, 55 miles, according to the Alaska Public Lands Information Centers. A theoretical drive, as fancifully calculated by CNN, from London to Alaska via Moscow might cover about 12,978 kilometers, 8,064 miles. Relatively isolated even by Alaska standards, no road connects Nome with the rest of the state's road system. About 836 road-less kilometers, 520 miles, across desolate terrain separates Nome from the closest major city and road network in Fairbanks, the unofficial northern terminus of the Alaska Highway. From Fairbanks, Canada and the 48 contiguous U.S. states can be reached by road. Assuming a road to Nome were ever built, the idea has been studied by the state of Alaska, A fantasy road trip from London to New York might cover a grueling but presumably photo-op-laden 20,777 kilometers, 12,910 miles. Facebook posts from forlorn Siberian rest stops might alone make the trip worthwhile, though the journey would also easily establish irritating new records for "Are we there yet?" gripes from the kids. Who's gonna pay for this thing? Yakonin has been described as a close friend of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Some sources have speculated that he could be Putin's likely successor as president. TEPR would reportedly cost trillions of dollars. According to Yakonin, however, massive economic returns would more than make up for the massive cash outlay, about which the report also included no details.